Well, here we go again, everybody. Good morning. It's 0500 and change here in San Francisco. We're getting in Studio B. No, Julia, she's upstairs in the Commodore's suite. I'm your sole host today. The Tom and Julia show is just the Tom show today. We have rigged up in the Crutonic corner another computer because we don't, in fact, it's going live now on, that is a YouTube shot from London via VPN because it is not clear. I couldn't find today's racing, which is a reserve day. Couldn't find it on ESPN Plus. So if we can't find it on ESPN Plus, at least we have it from YouTube via London via a VPN for this show number 771. Welcome to all of you. And that was the close call from yesterday. I have watched every, I think, inch of video, every minute, every second of video available on this call. And I still am not convinced that they didn't, that is the Brits, didn't get hunted down and that they should have had protection, as we umpires, or the umpires call it, as the giveaway boat on port tack is being hunted down by the starboard tack boat. The port tack boat gets protection as long as they are taking avoiding action and doing it timely, meaning soon enough and strongly enough, or taking a good hard turn. And they were initially, it looked to me like the Brits were going to clear, and they didn't have to take any avoiding action. Then in what I've seen, and I've looked over and over and over again, then the Kiwis kept turning down and down and down, and the umpires must have felt that at this point the Brits did not turn hard right soon enough, hard enough right or soon enough right, because they ended up, as you all know, as you see in this photo, side by side with the starboard foil arm on the Kiwis and the port foil arm on the Brits, virtually interlocked, and it could have been a disaster. It could have been, they could have collided, they could have hurt each other, they could have hurt the boats, and yada, yada. So I'm just not 100% sure from everything I've seen that the Brits were at fault. In fact, I'm not even 50% sure. I still lean toward the fact that they had protection and that the Brits were bailing out and had tried to bail out, and they got hunted down by the Kiwis. And, okay, you could have green flagged it if you didn't know for sure who was at fault, because that's also part of the umpiring code. If you don't know who's wrong, then you let it go. But, of course, it got really scarily close, and maybe the umpires felt they had to penalize one or the other, and it was kind of a simple port starboard to most of the rest of the world. I don't know. I don't buy it. I think the Brits got wronged in that incident yesterday. Okay, so that's where we are. I do see a feed coming in now off of, they're running a package, as you can see here over on this computer. I still don't see it up on, I'm going to go off the YouTube from London because I still don't see it. Oh, ESPN Plus is live, Eugene Berkery is telling me. Well, I'll go to that in a sec. Because we've got it at least on screen, as John pointed out. There was a green light, then it changed to penalty red light. Yeah, they even seemed a little, the umpires, that comment, thank you, Ed Worley, who's on with us, as, look at this, we got Christopher Gillingham too. So Julia's on upstairs listening, and we've got Ed Worley, and I don't see Graham Sweeney yet, but we do, there he is, there's Graham Sweeney and Christopher Gillingham in Leamington, and Gordon Smith in Copenhagen, Denmark, and John Emmett is joining us again from Weymouth. We appreciate all of the Zoomers. But just back to this quickly, that's my view of yesterday's pre-start penalty. I'm not sure it was justified. I'm pretty sure it was not. Looking at our schedule, it is Monday now, Monday the 14th here in the States and in Europe. It's closing in on your midnight in Australia. It's 0100 Tuesday morning in Auckland. Welcome to all of you. This is our show number 771, a working party for today's day 3, which is only one race, race 4. Tomorrow, no racing. It's an off day. We will run our regular show. Julia will be down here for 1300 PDT, which of course is 2000 UTC. Ben Remmacher will be our guest. And then we'll be back at it Wednesday morning for races 5 and 6, presumably, if the wind is better than it's forecast right now, again at 0500 PDT. And then Thursday is a reserve day, so if they lose racing today or Wednesday, they might be back at it live with racing on Thursday. That is assuming the demonstrators don't take over. There was a big demonstration, a couple thousand people, depending upon who you believe, marching through the streets of Barcelona against the America's Cup, saying that the government, that it's not relevant to the locals, the government's spending money that should be spent otherwise, yada, yada. It was quite a deal. And I think the next Cup, as you've seen in various articles also over the weekend, it looks like Mr. Denora and others are confirming the Cup will go to the Middle East, not back to Auckland where it should be. Okay, Friday the 18th is also racing, races 7 and 8. So it looks like we're going to have racing one way or another the rest of this week until somebody wins 7. First to win 7, as you all know. Let's get over here now to the stream and a little audio coming in. As Andy Armstrong joins from Hampton, Virginia, Sean Hogan is somewhere in Australia. He's out of the hospital at least. Hi to you, Sean. Fog Machine says there's 10 knots across the race course, so good raceable breeze. Tom Ogletree is in Aruba. He does move around a bit. John Bosley, gentlemen and ladies, good morning to you and from you. Brett the Kiwi is in Beijing. Brett Fruin is in Beijing again today, as he was yesterday. Bannero's in Connecticut. Hello, Rick. Ken Saban on the western end of Lake Erie in Toledo, Ohio. And what else do we have here? Andy Cox, are there onboard cameras to show when the driver makes the turn? There are onboard cameras, but I didn't see any onboard video. A little bit from the tail end, the back camera on board the Brits. One other thought here is we're looking at a countdown now. And we do have Breeze. We do have Melanie Roberts from the race committee confirming we're live. Let's quickly go to the Zoomers. We got just about 45 seconds before we go to John Emmett. But let's start with Graham Sweeney quickly. Who's going to win, the Brits or the Kiwis, Graham? Sorry, say again, Graham. Good morning.
I believe it's going to be the Brits, Tom.
Okay, that's it. Gordon Smith, who's going to win?
Kiwis.
The Kiwis. Okay, Christopher Gillingham, nicely dressed as you are during the week. In fact, at all times. Who's going to win, Christopher?
It's going to be the Brits today. It's not over yet.
Okay, I hope you're right, Ed Worley. Who's going to win?
Ineos.
And we've got entry. You've heard it from our expert Zoomers. Let's go to our play-by-play man, standing by in Weymouth, John Emmett.
Hey, Tom. Well, it looks like the match has already started. We're actually in the start, so hopefully I can see that a bit closer. If Ed can put himself on mute, and then I'll see Tom's screen, that would be great. Crikey, need to get into the match, but I have to say, I think Ian Williams' analysis of the incident, the Port Starboard incident, whatever you want to call it, yesterday was very good. I think he was very fair, and I would agree with him. It was 50-50. The problem is, by ruling the way they did, they set a precedent now for future situations which are exactly the same. So, yeah, that was a pretty big call. And the strange thing for me, I was watching on YouTube, they definitely green flagged it before they changed their mind. But I'm struggling to see. I've still got Tom. Can you say something, Tom?
Okay, hopefully you're seeing this stream here. Okay, so
I just want to
sorry.
Talk exactly the same as what you're saying. So what we've got now is tight circle with the Brits very well gapped off to the right-hand side. And I haven't actually had a chance to see the wind across the racecourse at this stage. Going back to the penalties, I still think it's very important to have penalties, which discourage people from crashing. But 75 metres is almost race over. So high mode for the Kiwis. Key analysis from yesterday. I never know how to phrase it, because as a coach, I would phrase that the Kiwis gained more on every single tack to windward than the Brits, and that was a really key moment. But there's plenty of space between. Brits coming in over pace at the moment, and it's going to be about the trigger pull and how quickly they turn up. And what we've got now, start time 0, it is a drag race. And the Brits doesn't show the angle, but they started 2-3 knots faster than the Kiwis. So I don't think the Kiwis could close that gap by the time they get to the boundary, but the Kiwis are ahead. So if they carry on like this, time for a bit of bar karate, it will be very difficult for the Kiwis when they tack. And I think by keeping that space, I would say the Brits had the slightly better start, but it is very hard to tell without having those overhead shots. And it's interesting the Kiwis didn't try to engage. So we've got a key tack coming up now, tacking on the whistle, and you're just looking for that full arm to go down. Hopefully, for the British supporter side on the leeward boat first, trying to work out whether there's boundary protection. Brits are going now. So the Kiwis are in a tough spot there. The gauge between the boats means if Ineos can climb, they can really make life hard for the Kiwis. But we've seen the Kiwis are very good at tacks, but two tacks, they're right by the boundary here, right by the boundary. 2 tacks is gonna hurt. That's really gonna hurt. So we might have a match here, boys. We might have a match. Little bit of clarification yesterday, very important. I'm reliably informed the exact words that Ben said, and I'm pretty sure he said drunken anchor. If you listen very carefully, so as not to get drunken anchor.
Drunken anchor.
Comment.
Yeah, I don't think that's what he said, but go ahead. Carry on,
Yeah.
John.
Well, Ben has a history of calling out media, and I think that's fair enough. And it's funny, I don't think there's any such thing as bad publicity. All publicity is good publicity, because it makes the pages, and it's good to see the coverage has increased. And for sure, if GBR win this race and they're 40 meters ahead at the moment, that will increase the coverage because nobody, well, maybe Team New Zealand do, but you don't really want a 7-0 drumming. It's not very good for the sport. But Brits, I think, will go boundary to boundary. When they complete this tack, we're looking at it going over 80 meters for them to put that slam dunk in. So it's a really crucial part of the race. A lot of people on YouTube are saying that GBR is slower. I'm not so sure. I think there's a difference between up and downwind performance, but the Brits are now too close to put that tack in. So I think we could see a lead change on the next cross. The problem is they don't have the ladder lines.
Yeah, it looks like the Kiwis want the upwind right, John.
I think so. I think all things being equal, but I've got to say, Tom, I haven't quite done my homework and seen what the wind map was looking like prior to the race. To be honest, I'd be quite happy if they didn't do the overlay, and I can make the decision myself as to where there's more wind on the course. But I think the Brits at the moment will have a narrow cross, but it takes out that boat handling element. When the boats are just going boundary to boundary. I like a good match race, but this will be a cross at the moment, and the difficulty is for the lead boat, which are trying to force it, so the second boat goes around the same windward gate. I love it when we see the chase boats. The thing I like about the chase boats, they're also on the foils, so they don't create a huge amount of wash. I can tell you from personal experience, media boats creating wash on the race course in type racing is not a lot of fun. Now we're coming back up here, and I think it's going to have to be a duck for Ineos. Question is, are the Kiwis on the ley line for the top left buoy?
Okay, here's a lead change, so we can count one lead. Oh, look at that, a covering tack ahead into leeward.
So the Brits are going to carry on and then tack for that left-hand gate, I would imagine. So that's good that the Brits, that the Kiwis were not on lay. So this is a really important tack. I know every tack is really important, but I think if the Brits are in the hunt now, I guess 2-second delta. If the Brits are in the hunt, they have shown good downwind speed. And we've no idea what's been changed between the packages, apart from we know the start was a lot better. So it does appear the New Zealand are lined up better for the pressure downwind, but the Brits had to split. And it's close. It's really close. Kiwi's going to be coming back with that starboard hand advantage, but 15 meters at what, 40 knots? That really, really isn't anything. I'm actually looking at the Zoomers, and everyone seems to be leaning forward in their seats. I can't help but notice the chat on YouTube as well. It's they don't, unlike your good show, Tom, they don't keep the comments afterwards. But I think Ineos did a good JK. I assume you call it a JK when you do
the hairpin turn is a JK. John Kostecki.
Well, it's after John Kazaki and 2013, and perhaps a moment we'd all forget. But I think we're going to see the boats bouncing off each other. If it's a cross, it will be a very, very narrow cross, and it's port starboard here.
Starboard and port. The green circle is starboard and red is port. Ineos giving way, so no lead change.
Ineos to go behind.
Yep.
Okay, bit of wing wash, and all of a sudden that's 40 meters. The key thing coming up
You see that,
now,
John? That they did protest. Ineos protested, and there was no penalty.
I personally felt the Kiwis pretty much maintained the course. I can only see as well as anyone. Please don't show us the replay. I forgot this isn't interactive TV. I want the red button, Tom, so I can watch the overhead. Brit's going to be coming back with starboard hand advantage with that pressure side of the course. But the 50 meters they lost, it could be too much. There's an interesting reflection on that screen.
That's my white shirt. I normally wear a darker shirt.
Well, no, I can see whether you're leaning forward or not. The next jibe, it looks like the Kiwis will have the cross. So that is really about how much speed they come out. My analysis of the tacks is it's not that the Kiwis are any faster. It's just that not needing to go through such a big turn. All in all, it equates to much the same thing, but 40 meters slowly decreasing. I mean, we have a match now. I think the Kiwis are going to pass. For good measure, I imagine Ben's going to press the protest button because why not? And that's twice the Brits have eaten a tiny bit of wing wash. That's twice. So looking for the next downwind gate. Where do you want to be?
Yeah, he did push the protest button, and that also was greened. I think that was kind of a ridiculous protest. But you're right. It seems that the Kiwis come out of attack higher. They don't have to go down quite as low to build speed before coming back up, and they seem to gain on every tack, maybe not on the jibes. The delta at the top gate was 0. First time I think we've seen a dead even arrival at a gate as they come into the bottom gate, John.
So I think both teams are potentially on ley line for a different mark. So this split is going to be really important. It looks like the Kiwis are going to force them to bounce off again. And I think it's a very good strategy for the Kiwis because every time they force some boat handling, they have a potentially small gain. Now, whether that's because they've had more boat time, whether it's the package is better, I don't know. So Brits are in more pressure, but the Kiwis are heading towards that right-hand side and that wind bend at the top. So we have a boat race. For people who were saying 7-0, I think we can see that's pretty unlikely. And 30 meters is nothing. I don't know. I guess it depends on the wind range, but I think you need 70 meters to do a slam dunk on somebody.
Yeah, the delta was 3 seconds at that last gate, John. So it was 0. And then it was 3 seconds. The Kiwis now on the upwind right where it's looking on the overlay like there is a little more pressure. And they're almost up to 100-meter delta as they come across with starboard right-of-way, the Kiwis.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's hard to tell because rightly or wrongly, the Brits seem to be faster at a lower angle, which means doing VMG tech is quite hard. In this situation with the Brits, I wouldn't be surprised if they put the bow down very slightly, just to try and make it harder for this slam dunk to come. Because that means as soon as this slam dunk comes, the Brits now need to tack. So they almost need to start building speed beforehand. Because I'm not sure they can live there, but I may be wrong because it's still going down. It's still going down.
Meaning the delta.
The meterage, and they've tacked off now. But I would expect when you think you're going to get slammed on, you start the speed build for your tack anyway, because the faster you are, and we're not in that wind range. This 10 knot wind range, it is safe to tack. We're not in the wind range where potentially you fall off your foils. Kiwi's going to boundary. And that's another nice sweet tack. So this 100 meters, it's dangerous for the Brits because it does give the Kiwis the opportunity to close down the race. So that is my mum in the background of the live video doing whatever she thinks she's doing. No, please, please.
Oh, you're at the family farm, not in Weymouth then.
Yes, yeah, she couldn't find her car keys. So just to prove that it's all recorded live. And one of the things we do train sailors to do is to perform with distractions. And much as I love her, my mum is definitely a distraction sometimes. So back into the race. I wish we'd have the overhead shots. This 60 meters, it still keeps it alive. And remember, when we talk about that pressure at the bottom left corner on the wing bend at the top right corner, that's just about throwing the dice, and that's just about on average. So, you know, good sailors make their own luck, but it also pays to be a little bit lucky. But the Kiwis, they're looking like they're doing a good job here. Slam dunk in 4 seconds, they could be 150 meters ahead. And I think we looked at about 200 meters ahead being that safe zone. So it's getting closer. You can read a bit of body language there. But I think the Brits have no choice but to gap off.
Let's hear, listen to Ben.
Okay. Time. Good attack. Okay.
Dylan.
Stand by.
Dylan Fletcher, Port Helm.
I think Dylan was driving yesterday during that incident, by the way. I've talked to people close to the team, within the team, and John, you and I talked a little bit about it. The Brits now have to tack away to avoid the wing wash. And they're covered by the Kiwis.
Well, it's a loose cover now because actually the Kiwis want to protect that right-hand side and stay in pressure. And when you're doing fleet racing, this is a really key skill to watch your key opposition, but also to extend because that makes it safe. In fact, personally, I would be tempted as the Kiwis just to give it another 3 boat lengths, which is almost a fraction of a second, just to make sure they're into that clear pressure. But, you know, this is proper match racing, the positioning here. And I just wonder whether the Brits can dive down because the wing wash goes almost straight behind the boat because the boats are so fast. We notice it in displacement boats. The area of wind shadow really changes depending upon the course and the wind strength. So the faster you go, the more it just goes straight back. Just like being on your bicycle going downhill, you know, the apparent wind is straight in front of you on a windless day. So the Brits keeping the race alive. I do feel yesterday there was not much they could have done differently from what they did. And I do think that these distances don't actually show how close the racing is. Now, I think the Kiwis will tack if the Brits tack just to try and close down the race. So the Brits are forced to do another JK at the top or follow. So without the overhead shot, but that top right looking upwind did have the better pressure and the leader gets to choose.
We're looking at the delta as it's going to have increased a bit up to 13 seconds. It was 0 the first time up the top gate, 3 seconds at the bottom gate, and now is 13 to the Brits. And we're in the chat. We've got the Brits should do a bluff tack. No, I don't think, Brett Fruin, that's going to happen. Krasimir Naumov's joined us. Pedaling for survival. Mark Holland saying there were technically 12 lead changes on the first leg, at least if you believe the GPS. I think there was maybe one, and I think there was one on the second leg. And I think now, John, we've got...
We've got the Fat Singer warming up.
Yep.
Because what we've got now is the Kiwis. Just a comment with Alex. When I'm talking about speed advantage, I think the key thing is the VMG. So the Kiwis do have slightly better VMG upwind, and that 200-meter lead, I think that reflects that. So back to bar karaoke, I think the Kiwis can match jibe for jibe, just forcing those little transitions through the wing wash every jibe they do, and that would allow the Kiwis the opportunity to pull away. I think if it was a straight boat speed race, probably VMG wise, the Brits are better, but we said it, or at least I thought I said it yesterday. You would trade that half a knot downwind advantage for half a knot upwind advantage.
Exactly.
Any week. And the more it's boundary to boundary racing. Having said that, the Kiwis, I do think their boat handling, and I'm going to phrase it the coaching way, I do think every time there's a boat handling incident, they have a chance to extend their lead, because I think they gain more meters. That's how I always phrase it. So a good tack maximizes your gain to the win mark. It's not necessarily a fast tack or a quick tack or a tack through a small angle. A good tack is a tack that maximizes your gain to the next leg of the course, and the same, but obviously the opposite for a jibe. But you know, Pete and Blair looking pretty relaxed. And the thing I would say is the cyclers, bless them, they don't look very photogenic when they keep on popping it up. What I like is a window showing the overhead shot the whole time. But unfortunately, I think that the Brits have currently got fairly used to seeing the transom of a Kiwi boat. Fact, yeah, if it gets to 300 meters, they have that chance to do that second tack on the preceding upwind and be directly upwind of Ineos when Ineos goes round the marks now. So,
yep, it is starting. As a couple people have said, they've spotted the fat lady. She may not quite yet be singing, but if they go up 4-0, John, that's a hell of a that is a hell of a steep climb to get back into this series, which, as I'm sure all of you know, is first to win 7.
I mean, for all the people who criticised Ben at certain points, he's probably the most mentally tough person I know, and the best person I know under pressure. His Olympic medals don't give the full story. Just about every Olympic Games, he had something seriously going on, whether it was a foot injury, a neck injury, catching mumps, down to minor points like completely destroying his hiking wetsuit just before the first race, and all this stuff. I mean, Ben is an absolute fighter, but the Kiwi package does look better. I am slightly encouraged by the fact the Brits got this right-hand gate looking upwind, but you probably saw out of picture, the Kiwis are already on the same tack. So
another 2-second gain on that upwind leg. It's now the delta's up to 15. But it's the 200 meters, John, that's the 200 meters. And this pressure right here may help the Brits for a second.
The danger now for the Brits is they're going to get bounced off an increasingly small amount of runway. So the Kiwis will probably just go tack for tack now. You can see that little thing of Ray Davis, who's the strategist.
The coach, team coach. On the coach boat.
Team Goat, yeah. So at the moment, the Kiwis can position themselves directly with that 200-meter gap directly between the Brits and the next mark, because there's no way anybody's going to make huge gains on the final downwind. That's just not the way the boats perform. Very different from your classic match racing with big spinnakers and very slow water pushers, where the advantage is always with the boat behind and they can really close the gap. The Kiwis are going to take this as good tacking practice, and I think they will go on GBR every time at all the top. And if they throw away a few meters to do that, That's absolutely fine. Doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, and they will line up for that right-hand gate looking upwind. Presumably, the fat lady's gonna get her evening dress on.
Let's go quickly to the Zoomers as the Kiwi lead starts to look a little more comfortable. Let's go to Graham Sweeney. We can see just a corner of his Union Jack pillow there in Scotland. Graham, sorry to say your team is not looking particularly strong at the moment.
No, it isn't. They're fast and they're high, and they're able to maintain the speed right the way through it. So it seems to me they're a level above us, to be honest. And I think we're going to need another America's Cup maybe with these plutonic vessels to try and get some sort of way of getting at them. But who knows, eh?
Gordon, you've been the consummate optimist. In fact, you're getting a lot of compliments for how optimistic you've been. Are you still feeling optimistic now at this point?
No, in a weird way, yes. I still look at this race and say, well, if you compare it to all the Challenger Series and other races, this would be considered a close race. I think we can see that as the wind improves, Ineos is more competitive. I think this is the best race so far. So, I see no reason not to be optimistic.
Okay, well, we've seen big comebacks once or twice before, but the sartorially resplendent Christopher Gillingham with that beautiful background in Leamington in the UK. Good morning, good afternoon to you, Christopher. Are you at all optimistic? You're also a Brit fan.
I am a Brit fan, and I'm still optimistic, as Gordon's alluded. If we get some more breeze, and let's hope we do, we stand a better chance. We've got a good package, and I know the Kiwis have got a good package, but I'm still in it. I'm still Team Ineos. Let's go for it, guys.
Okay, well, Ed Worley, you're an American living down in SoCal. Been involved in the Cup for a long time, both with teams and also as a keen observer. What's your view?
I think Ineos is doing the best they can. You can't criticize them because you're not in the water. But it is frustrating to watch the Kiwis just stretch a little bit at a time, like John's talking about. They just keep building on the lead. And my hope is fading along with the breeze this week because I saw the weather forecast. There's not going to be a lot of breeze the rest of this week.
Yeah, indeed.
So.
There's the crotch shot. There's Richard Gladwell's favorite shot. The sweat falling off the face of the cyclor. Rick Bannero saying hi to Julia. And John Emmett coming into the top gate. This is a short race, only a 6-leg race. Despite only having one race on the schedule for today to catch back up. This is the 4th race. And if the Kiwis win, they'll go up 4-0, John.
Yeah, and I think that's increasingly likely. Personally, I wouldn't be optimistic. I don't think hope is a strategy. And I am very impressed with the cyclers. I can do that wattage for about 10 seconds, and then my heart tries to jump out his chest. So Kiwis putting in another textbook tack. I'll just say to Chris, he's heading up to see Loughborough. That's my old university. I keep on getting contacted by the alumni there. I think we've probably got something like top 10 medals, as if Loughborough, population of a few tens of thousands, was actually a country. They get a huge number of medals. Fat Lady's got her evening dress on as we head downwind. It is marginal gains, just being a tiny bit higher, tiny bit faster, tiny bit better attacking. That's suddenly 30 seconds by the time you get to the end of the race. It is the final leg. It's not surprising to see Ineos go round the other mark just to try and do anything to close it. Actually, they're probably going to be throwing away a bit of distance now because they're in less breeze in that top half of the course than the Kiwis were. I do sort of object, though, to people saying about good wind. Like, that's Disney, where the goodie is dressed in white and the baddie is dressed in black. Like, funny enough, in China, I think they do it the other way around. The teams should have designed their package for the lower wind range, for that 6.5 to around 11 knots.
As apparently did the Kiwis.
Yeah, but because that's what you would expect this time of year. Now, you don't want a package with inherent weaknesses. I talked about this with Olympic sailing, where we had the China Olympic Games, and the person who won the gold medal in the 49er was the person who didn't capsize going downwind. That was not expected. So you can't have a weakness in your armor. But yes, you need to design your package for the light winds. And a good example of that in a way, even more than the height upwind, is the fact that the Kiwis have that narrower tacking angle, obviously because they need less power to get through the tacks. And I suspect they've got a larger gauge in their VMG if they want it, and that makes a big difference. So you can place the boat on the course where you want. So we spend a lot of time practicing VMG, which is a small angle upwind, which is as fast as you can go. I have to say to the fellow Ineos supporters, 300-400 meters, it's comforting, but we're over halfway through. So if anyone is drinking, it's very squeaky bum time, and you hope a rabbit can be pulled out of the hat in the next 24 hours. Praying to the wind gods is not a strategy. You've got to optimize for what you have. I mean, I thought the Brit start was good. I think the first leg was good. But until you end up with Ineos leading around the bottom gate, I think we've got a pretty hard time.
Rick Bannerose celebrating squeaky bum time now that you've said what appears to be the latest code word. Not Stephen McWanker. That might be a code word as well. We'll talk about that. It's speculation here, wondering whether Mr. McWanker is going to interview Sir Ben after this race, John.
Sorry, I didn't mute. Well, it gets clicks or whatever. I mean, it's not easy to commentate, and a lot of people said you should have commentators who are from neutral countries, but it's quite hard to do that because most of the top people who understand the sport are from a very limited number of countries, which have people who are racing in the America's Cup. They really do.
A little branding for Toyota.
The one thing for me which sort of seems unfair, and I was having coffee with someone this morning, it's like the only competition where the winner gets to write the rules. I mean, there's something very special about that, but it's also something rather strange for people who come from other sports, that's how it goes. And the harvesting of data which the defenders would have got from the challengers, it almost seems an unfair advantage. They would have known when they got onto the course that they were higher and faster or whatever. And they would have watched all the racing that the others had. But 4-0, it's not unexpected given what we saw on the first day, and I know it irritates you, but that's why I was reluctant to throw my hat into the ring, because now we know how the boats perform in these wind ranges. And that's a significant delta, isn't it, Tom?
Well, again, we think the Brits are, for what it's worth, are a click faster downhill because it was 24. Just reviewing the gate, it was 24 at the previous gate. Just reviewing the deltas now, it was 0 at the first gate. That was a good first leg. We had a lead change, at least one. And then we had a lead change downhill on the second leg. The delta at the bottom gate was 3 seconds, then 13, then 15. Then at the top gate last time was 24, and now it's about the same, 23. So there are people who assert, including several of the commenters in the chat here, asserting that the slightly swept forward wings on the Kiwis and slightly bigger wings on the Kiwi boat is what's helping them come out of that tack, John, with a higher angle, a better VMG, and they seem to gain each little tack upwind. They also, as you had mentioned a few minutes ago, and you and I have discussed, we've chatted with all the Zoomers, in fact, if you're going to pitch your boat, which is what the sailors talk about in the America's Cup teams, the engineers, the designers, the sailors, when you see what the race course is going to be, this is months and years before the America's Cup racing starts, when you see what the race course is going to be, whether it's the old-fashioned Olympic course, triangle, windward, leeward, windward, whether it's the more modern or what we think of now as the modern windward, leeward tracks, and then when you, as you said, John, take into consideration the local weather conditions and sea state conditions that are expected, you then design your package, your boat for that, and you also take a decision whether to pitch the boat more toward the upwind leg or more toward the downwind leg. And as we all know, if you can, on an upwind start, and these, unlike Sail GP, which is a little different because they're starting on a reach, but on an upwind start, you want to win the start, obviously, but you also want to win that first weather leg because, as we've seen, it is so difficult to pass after that first upwind gate. John.
I mean, absolutely. And in terms of Olympic sailing, I mean, we're looking at wind data for the previous 10 years for Olympic venues and going to experiment ourselves and learn to sail in those conditions long before the Olympic Games, because there's a huge difference between the 10 knots in flat water, 10 knots in chop,
Yeah.
10 knots in wave,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
10 knots in swell. And I won't go into the detail there, but you can see what the you can see what venues I'm talking about.
Alex, John, Alex Hayworth wants to know what the dial code, what the area code is for Jeddah hotel bookings. He wants the number. Oh dear. Let's see if we have an interview here with Sir Ben and Mr. McWanker.
Start off with, but yeah, it was a good race, and they had a good start. Got the first cross, but yeah, they're just going well. They're going really well, and so I think for us it's a matter of try and figure out how we can make some of these performance gains to take it to them.
Oh, Benny, we've all been drawing scores. And,
he's being interviewed, not by Mr. Stephen McWanker. He's being interviewed by Glenn Ashby.
Obviously, a lot of data to go through.
Just turn up here. Yeah. Yeah, I think
He
that's
looks
right.
happier
It's
too.
a good opportunity to take it there ashore, try and figure out how we can find some gains. Clearly, they're going really well. I think we have our moments, but still there are moments where we're losing a click, and I think that's really the difference. So yeah, I mean, we're going to keep going. We'll push all the way here. They've obviously had a strong start, but we can still come back from this.
Absolutely. No, you're going well, mate.
Yeah, you're going well, mate. Okay, well, I don't know about that. I think Theo Smith gets the comment of the day. Say good night, KNIGH. Let's see what Dylan Fletcher has to say.
Start today, and I think as Ben said, we'll just take a good look at everything and see where we can eke out some more gains tomorrow.
A quick question to Lee. Hey, Lee. For us watching on the screen, it looks like there's nothing in it between these boats. I mean, you're at lead-on
Oh, come on, Shirley. Give me. Even John's got to cover his mouth. I don't know if that was a yawn. Give me a break, John. What do you think?
It's getting closer and closer.
I mean, I do have to say that the rich always get richer with these really fast boats. So even if you've got two evenly boats, which I'm not saying they are, the leader would tend to extend because they're into the new pressure first and they get to decide where to go first. So I do expect the deltas always to increase a little bit. The Brits do need to go around the bottom right in front to have a chance. Yeah, I do need to sort out my sleep. I don't know if you can see that on camera. I haven't actually been doing a particularly good sleeping recently. I don't know if that's to do with pints of
with
America's
respect,
Cup or
John, 7 hours 15 is better than what Ed Worley and I've been doing. It's tough to go.
It's the 41 out of 100.
Yeah, well,
which is,
you're an athlete. You're tough. You're young. It's tough for us.
There's no sleep.
Come on, we're lucky we get 5 hours of sleep when we're doing this thing. I had a back and forth with Alistair Murray this morning because I owe him a couple of emails, and he wanted to be sure I was getting his emails because normally I'm pretty responsive, and I've been cretonic, and I apologize to anybody to whom I owe an email as we've now seen the fourth race. I guess it did finally make it onto ESPN Plus. I didn't even bother checking because I've got it here. I rigged up another computer this morning. You can see my camera is hunting and keeping me in the middle of that camera, keeping me in the middle of the shot. These fancy new cameras, the technology continues, including our Zoomers, whom we're delighted to have. Let's start with Ed Worley and go backwards this time. Ed, what do you think?
Can I finish?
I'll come back to you, John. We'll let you wrap up in a sec. Okay, Ed?
Well, I think if Ineos can do better in the tax, I mean, I don't want to criticize people because I've been there training on the boats, but if they can improve their style or their tactics, I remember when Oracle was able to do that in San Francisco. when during the middle of the series they were able to improve and learn how to foil the boat upwind. But it's hard when the Kiwis are so good, and they're very good at shutting down the opportunities on the course by course placement. So I'm hoping that Britain will win a race, because I hate to say this, but looking at my America's Cup library, the British haven't won a race in the America's Cup since 1934.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in the match. Well, they haven't been in the match since 1964.
Right.
So that's, those of you who can do the math, that's 60 years. And
Right.
here's the problem, and I'll ask Gordon to comment next, but here's the problem, and we haven't talked much about it, but the British boat is a high freeboard boat. There is more windage to that boat. The American boat was the lowest windage boat, but by putting their cyclers facing aft and having them recumbent, they maybe couldn't generate enough power compared to the other boats, and that trade-off may have not been worthwhile. The Kiwis seem to have struck a good middle ground between being high freeboard and being low freeboard, and they're using cyclors. They're using, as I said yesterday, the youth America's Cup team sailors cannot, under the rules, sail legally on the senior boats during the races, but they can go out and do the pedaling, the cycloring before the race, which is what our Fozy Leo Takahashi is doing, or so I'm reliably informed. But I think the freeboard difference on the British boat compared to the Kiwi boat, and you're not going to change the freeboard of the British boat overnight. So I think that's why it's not boating well, unless the breeze comes up a lot later in the week, because we'll have no racing tomorrow. It's a reserve day, as you know, Ed. And then it looks like we'll do our normal 1300 race tomorrow, our 1300 show, and then we'll have racing again, it looks like Wednesday morning for races 5 and 6. Let's go to our other reliably confident, but also been on here every day with us along with Graham, Ed, and John. Let's go to our Copenhagen Flash, the Gordon Smith in Denmark.
Hi, Tom. Hi, the Fozy. I'm going to be completely honest. I think this problem with Ineos freeboard is BS, because you're forgetting that the wind is going straight down the axis of the boat, and the freeboard is not an issue.
You just like to argue with me. If I say black, I can reliably predict you are going to say white. I love it.
I think you need to think about why these boats are different. I am optimistic. I don't think it's going to be 7-0, but I think we can see a clear indication of why the wind is so important. I think your argument for the lower wind conditions is a very good argument.
Okay, we agree on something. I love you, Gordon Smith, and I love having you on here because you do give us another perspective. And whether you're in your Studio A or now you're in your Studio B there in Copenhagen, it's great to have you on. Let's go back to John Emmett, and then we'll have Graham Sweeney take us out. John, your final thoughts?
Well, to finish my previous thought, which probably people didn't realise, on YouTube there's a lot of people who've been accusing Ben Ainsley of sleeping, which was hence my comment there. So I've done my bit for Team Britannia, and I've bought the new Ainsley sleeping powder, and I'll try that out.
Tell us. I mean, we've been seeing those ads. There's a company now called Ainsley and Ainsley, and his beloved, lovely wife Georgie's been promoting this sleeping powder. What is it? Have you tried it?
Well, I saw Lily was advertising it, so maybe she has, but I literally put in a subscription last night as I was feeling absolutely exhausted. So I'll give a bit of feedback to that, because actually, I do take supplements for a lot. In fact, I won't bore you, but I almost rattle these days. But good.
Come on, let's see them. Let's see your supplements, John. Give us. Hold it up here.
I'm packing to go back to Weymouth. I mean, I've got a whole football bag full of them, and I take a 3 monthly blood test just to check, your folate, your omega-3, your cholesterol, all the sort of performance enhancing things. But yeah, I mean, we all feel grumpy when we haven't had a good night's sleep. So I think it's really worth investing in. But Ben was getting a very hard time on YouTube about him going to sleep. He's a very scary man at the moment from New Zealand. But the real question is, and actually I wasn't that far out, it's 0.4 of a knot VNG difference upwind.
Wow, that's a lot.
That is huge.
Wow.
That is huge. So when I'm saying half a knot, unless that gets overcome, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. Boat speed makes you a tactical genius.
No
Time
doubt.
to go and play Poost.
No doubt. Okay, I just go back to the chat, and then we'll go to Graham Sweeney and have him take us out of this. What's been a very short day. That race was over in 37. That television show was over in 37 minutes. And Mark Atchison defending Ben, he's saying we all feel grumpy when we're interviewed by Stephen McWanker. Alistair Murray's going to sleep. It's nearly midnight in Australia, in the eastern part of Australia. He's in Melbourne, of course. Nice to have you on, Mr. President. Rick Bannerow is looking forward to, I guess, tomorrow's show at 1300. Yep, Julia will be back down for our regular show. And any other big pressing comments here as I scroll up? Hull height is a killer of Britannia ability to cant their board. Alex Hayworth, who's a very, very close to the British team, by the way. He's a Brit. This means they don't have enough anti-leeway factor. The deck is also too high, so center of effort is too high. So says Alex Hayworth. And Alistair Murray observing that NZL actually sailed more distance than GBR in that race. And John, you can sail more distance in the race if you're going faster.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, VNG is absolutely king, and that's true of any boat you sail. You know, if you've got a 300 horsepower engine and your rivals have got 250, well, that's game over in motorsport. I think the racing has been. Like Britannia could get in touch, but it's been close. Imagine what it would have been like if it was, I don't know, a Lingy versus the Kiwis. That would have been like watching paint dry because you knew what happened before the start. Got 48 hours, I guess, roughly to turn things around. I wait with great interest to see what happens, and I will endeavour to be in front of my computer doing the play-by-play. I do think by the end of the first lap, the first sottage, then you often know how it's going to turn out.
Well, you always do, right? Hey, I can tell me, John, you're a professional TV guy at this point, and with 7 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, why are they running this package about the Maori? Talking about the television production, why aren't you running it about the America's Cup and the racing and the helms and the people and the teams? This is a SOP, an SOP to New Zealand, I guess.
I have no idea how to answer that question because I'm not running it. I mean, for me, I'm always very interested to show the sailors' point of view. I talked a little bit on the previous show about the media and the respect because it just half makes me laugh that, you know, you've got 14-year-old WASP sailors screaming at how, you know, Dylan should have done a better tack. And it's so hard racing. It's really quite hard to understand. It's like when you watch pictures of Matthew Wern sailing upwind in an Ilka. I mean, these guys are the best of the best of the best.
Exactly.
But the package, I mean, we would all like to do things differently. I do hope we get to a point where we can red button it and choose the view that you want.
Well, I just wish, I agree, John. I just wish that when we go full screen, whether it's on the TV or taking it live right off, I wish they would put in the upper, left corner, a PIP, a picture-in-picture of the overhead shot so that we could see what's going on.
I would imagine, because if you look at YouTube, you've got tens of thousands of viewers, and of course we would like it to be greater than that. But I think these days, so many people watch content in portrait. You've got to be really careful that you make the thing you really want to see the most obvious. And I'm actually considering when I go and do my walks and talks that I'm actually going to start holding the pocket at a funny angle because 80% of people are watching it in portrait.
To hell
rather
with them.
than
To hell with them. They
in
can
landscape.
all turn their camera. If they're watching it in portrait, all they have to do is turn their phone, whether it's a Google phone or tell me what, or their iPhone, they can turn it 90 degrees or 90 degrees
But
and watch
you,
it.
you only get 4K in one direction.
Well,
Maybe I
we don't care
digress.
about 4K. John, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm going to take issue with you like I do sometimes with Gordon Smith, but I never take issue with Graham Sweeney. The lovable Graham Sweeney, a superb photographer, longtime fan and follower of the Cup. I just one last comment to ask you to react to, Graham. Steve Atkins, Commodore Atkins, is saying to John, 7 hours is really good in my world. 7 hours of sleep is really good, Graham Sweeney. What do you think? Are we done? Is this 4-0 soon to be 7-0, or what's your latest and final prediction on the series score?
Well, to start off with, I only got 6 hours sleep last night, so I beat the lot of you. I think we've got to start really being realistic, and if we're really looking at this now, we've really either got to bring the rabbit out of the hat, which I don't think we've got. I think someone's killed the rabbit. I think we've really got to start looking at the next edition. I think that is where we can now get data and start looking forward towards another edition of this kind of racing and try and get a grip of them. I think this is all but done.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. Tom Pace was making the point earlier in the comments that at those speeds, meaning the speeds they're sailing, the 5 seconds delta at each subsequent rounding is, when they're traveling at 30 to 33 knots, is 44 feet per second. Even as close as it seems in non-foiling racing, at those speeds, it's a slam dunk. Yeah, GBR's average speed. Our statistician, Mark Holland, thanks, Mark, again for all. He's there in the media center in Barcelona. The GBR's average speed today was 0.7 of a knot slower, which again, John Emmett will, we all, speed makes you look smart and everything else, but that is that's a huge delta, a huge difference, Graham Sweeney. Graham, thank you to you. Thanks to all the Zoomers. We'll get off the air here in the next couple minutes. Gordon, to you, Ed Worley, and, of course, to our play-by-play man, John Emmett. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Will you be in Weymouth tomorrow, John?
Well, it depends on my builder. Literally, I've got to climb up the farmhouse and see how much lead squirrels have eaten. I've chopped all the trees down within 4 meters of the main building because I understand that's how far squirrels can jump. And if it looks like the next burst of rain isn't going to come straight in through the box room into my mum, then I'll be hitting the road first thing in the morning, picking up a boat that's come back from Villamora, picking up some sails at Weymouth, strapping the boat down, and then being in front of my computer at the flat.
There's the answer we were looking for. You're going to be in front of your Zoomer. As a Zoomer, you're going to be in front of your computer. Thanks for that. Sean Hogan saying thanks to all the Zoomers as well. Larry Kennedy, he's a bimbo today. He's going off to get some races. They got a big event going on at Sewanaka Corinthian Yacht Club. Thanks to them. Steve Atkins has a final question for you, John. Are they black squirrels?
Well, I imagine they're the grey squirrels rather than Kiwi squirrels, because we used to have red squirrels, just like the British Army used to wear before they realised about camouflage. They always used to be red coats, which is probably a sniper's dream. I don't know why they didn't figure that out, but we used to have lovely native red squirrels, but they got out-Darwined, out-evolutioned by the grey squirrels here. But there's lots of deer and foxes, because we home foxes around here, and the buggers stay locally. So I don't know if you've ever heard the sound of a fox mating, but it can give you cold chills if you're not sleeping very well. And for Graham or whatever, I'd swap I'll swap 6 hours of sleep for 8 hours of sleep any day if I just got 1 hour of deep sleep.
We've gone from Sailing Illustrated to Sleeping Illustrated to now Squirreling Illustrated to
when I went on the
Foxing Intercourse Illustrated.
Oh.
John.
You thought cats were bad, but when I went on the roof, some of the chimney pots are missing. Some of the chimney pots have just been put with bits of pipe. And I think birds sometimes fly down there and then get lost somewhere inside the farmhouse. So the scratching in the walls doesn't do your sleep much good either.
Well, Graham Sweeney has a suggestion for you. He says, chicken wire on your roof attached to a transformer controller. It's a great sport. You never know where we're going to go here in Studio B, even without Julia here shaking her finger at us for talking about foxes fudging. Is that what you were talking about, John? Foxes fudging?
Way to the Isle of Wight for red squirrels. Yeah, I mean, I do sympathise with Lily being in China at the moment in 20 degrees when here it is pretty cold, wet, and miserable.
Okay.
But, yeah, it's great to have the company, and I really hope for some exciting racing on Wednesday. And I have my laptop with you, so hopefully there's no crashes on the M3. I will join whatever.
Well, wanker lead chopping squirrels. Yeah, the Graham Sweeney's comment. Hamish Ross has just tuned in. He must have gotten up in Auckland to take a pee at 0200. He says, just tuned in, and it sounds like the sailing hasn't been... It actually was pretty good, Hamish, to be fair. It was okay. John's nodding his head yes. All the Zoomers are saying, yeah,
I think it's on the way up, Tom.
It was, well, you're starting to sound like Gordon Smith, and I hope you're right. I hope you're both right. We've just seen race day 3 and race number 4. Tomorrow is a reserve day. And we will be at it again with Watch. We'll do our regular show, as I'll put the cover slide up again. We'll do our regular show tomorrow at 1300 Pacific, 2000 UTC. And then we'll be back at it Wednesday morning with a watch party, as we are now, thank goodness, well and truly, after an hour and 1 minute of watch party live streaming today, we're to the finish line. Like, follow, and share if you would, please. Julia likes to remind us of that. Comments are welcome. As John mentioned, we leave it open, so you can comment even in replay. And we appreciate all the comments, all the chat, all the chatterers, and that you lend a lot to this show in addition to our Zoomers, to whom we are deeply appreciative, as we are for those of you who support us via Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated if you want to help keep us with some equipment that's modern, upgrading our equipment and paying our Zooming fees, our other streaming fees to keep us on the air. Take care, everyone. As Ed Worley is saying, happy, if you're in the States, happy Indigenous Peoples Day. It is used to be known as Columbus Day. It's for many people a 3-day weekend. There are regattas here and there in Canada and the States. Where Canada, it's Happy Thanksgiving. It's their Canadian Thanksgiving on this Monday in October. So our upcoming schedule, just to repeat, we finished this watch party, 771. Tomorrow's our regular show, number 772. Ben Remmacher will be our guest live via Skype from Vancouver, talking about 49 skippers, helmsmen, medalists. And on Wednesday, we'll be back at it with races 5 and 6 at 0500 Pacific, which is 1200 UTC. And then Thursday is a reserve day. There may be racing or there may not be racing on Thursday, depending upon what happens on Wednesday. The forecast for the rest of this week continues to be light. But as we've all seen in Barcelona, the forecast more than, forget about 24 hours out, forecast more than even about 6 hours out can be dicey, can be dodgy. And again, racing on Friday, it looks like a watch party at 0500 for races 7 and 8 in this series that is the first to win 7. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. We hope you have a great rest of your holiday weekend. If you're here in Canada, the U.S., or wherever in the world, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow at 1300 Pacific for our regular show. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now. Thanks, Zoomers. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, chatters. And thanks,
Tom.
Cheers, Tom.